And now, let's join Maggie Linton on SiriusXM Urban View.
Later this hour, we'll chat with Army veteran Noah Galloway about his busy life following his third-place finish on Dancing with the Stars. But we continue with advice for leaders on how to be their best in their jobs and in their life. Dr. Donna Stoneham is an executive coach, leadership development consultant, facilitator, and founder of Positive Impact, LLC. She is also principal and co-founder of Integral Intelligence, a transformational approach to leadership development. Her book is The Thriver's Edge, 7 Keys to the Way You Live, Love, and Lead. Welcome, Doctor.
Hi, Maggie. How are you this morning?
I'm just doing great. How about you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, it's good to have you on. Your book is quite interesting. And what got you started on this path to finding the right leaders? Because if you're leading the right way at work, you can also generally be doing that at home, being a good father or mother or kid or whatever the case may be.
I totally agree. You know, the old David Carradine saying, everything is everything, grasshopper. I think it's very true. So when we change who we are in our work, we change who we are in our lives. And it's integrated. So that's really what got me on the path. I found both in my own life and in the lives of a lot of the folks that I've coached and worked with over the years that they were kind of trying to lead two distinct lives. And really, once we become more whole and more integrated and more authentic, we're much more powerful in our leadership.
When you mentioned if you're happy at work, you're 9 chances out of 10 going to be happy at home. And that is so true because they both work together in tandem, don't they? Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think when we began to see I'll give you an example. I was working with a woman, a young mother who had a 9-month-old baby, and she was feeling really guilty about not spending more time with her child. And so one of the practices I gave her was to spend 10 minutes a day just being really present with her child. I called it baby gazing. So literally doing nothing else but attending to that child. And what she told me after several months was that as she'd begun to do that practice, she started finding how much more present she was at work with the people that worked for her. And so, one thing translates into from our work into our lives. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about your book, The Thriver's Edge, because it's so many of us spend time focusing on the wrong thing, the negative things. And that is always in the way of moving forward, looking for the best in what we are doing at that point.
It surely is. And, where the issue is that we're kind of hardwired to see the negative and not the positive. So that means we really have to focus our energies on the positive. Rick Hansen, in his book Buddha's Brain, talks about how our brains are hardwired almost like negativity is like Velcro, and positive insights and positive affirmations are like Teflon. So we really have to be conscious about cultivating seeing the good in our lives, and that's why I really advocate a practice of gratitude, because that keeps us thinking along the more positive lines than always worrying about what's not happening or what's not correct in our lives.
Yeah, way too much focus on that. You also say that so many people are more afraid of success than they are of failure. Failure is something most all have experienced, and success can be such a struggle.
Yes, and there's several reasons for that. That's one of the main reasons I wrote the book. I have been in my own life wanting to publish a book for many years. I've actually written 3 books, but I had never published any of them. And I stumbled upon this notion of the Jonah Complex, which was Abraham Maslow's theory. And Maslow talked about this notion about being more, at least as afraid of to succeed as we were to fail. And he says there's several reasons for that. And one of them is that we're afraid we'll be rejected if we're really successful. People won't want to hang out with us anymore, be with us anymore. Or we're afraid we'll feel overwhelmed. Or we're afraid we'll feel like we have too much responsibility. or we're actually afraid we're almost would disintegrate or we'd lose control completely. So I started digging into that and realizing, that, and once we hit a certain pinnacle in our lives, there are reasons that still get in our way, and once we understand what those are, we can move beyond them.
And also looking for that support group, getting the right people in our lives to help bring that success that we are yearning or looking for.
I call those folks soul tenders in my book. And, we have a choice every day who we're going to associate with. Not necessarily so much at work sometimes. Sometimes we're in a situation where we're working with a particular group, but what we do always have control of is our attitude about it and what we're willing to take on and to assume in terms of what other people are telling us or saying. So I think it's both an internal and an external awareness of making sure that you're hanging out with people and spending time with people that really are building you up and not those people who are trying to tear you down or diminish you. And likewise, making sure that you're managing the voice of your own inner critic and listening more to the voice of your inner champion who really does want you to succeed.
Once again, we're talking with executive coach, leadership development consultant, facilitator, Dr. Donna Stoneham, and we're talking about her book, The Thriver's Edge, 7 Keys to the Way You Live, Love, and Lead. You talk about the one woman that you mentioned earlier and just spending 10 minutes a day with her child, but all throughout that day, you really need to be in the present. There's a little bit of daydreaming that has to go on sometimes to get you through. But being in the present, it's really what it's all about.
Absolutely. It's, I say this and it's trite but true. I think, presence is the present. And it's our ability to really be with what is happening in any given moment and not let it knock us off center. Because we're constantly throughout the day being barraged by multiple people and multiple demands, and it's really easy to lose our bearings. And a big focus of my book and the coaching practice is what are some of the things and practices that you can do to maintain your bearings and to live in the present moment and not get thrown off, not worry about the future or ruminate over the past.
And you, within that, though, you're also saying take the time to look around and enjoy where you are, too. It's not just saying, okay, I'm here, I'm going to, and do your best.
Yeah, and it's I use the metaphor a lot with my clients about we keep swimming for the island. We keep thinking if we just get to that next island, we're going to be happy. And really the joy is in the journey of the swim. And I think when we can begin to stop grasping so much for what's ahead and really enjoy the moments that we're in now. I mean, you can't get those moments back.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have them, that's it. Like a child growing up, you can't get those back.
Yeah, like I said, I can't even go back and get the last minute. I'm done. The last hour,
exactly.
I'm done. I can see what I could have done right, what I could have changed. And that's another thing, letting go of things that aren't propelling you forward, too, because we drag stuff around with us where we're constantly going over that, where we're not paying attention to what we could be doing to change.
Yes, and it's like, where do we want to focus our energy? Because you only have a finite amount of time and you only have a finite amount of energy. So are you going to spend it worrying about what you did wrong, or are you going to spend it in pursuit of your dreams and where you want to move forward and where you want to go? And I think that's really what differentiates people that thrive from those who don't, is they've developed the capacity to really be resilient and to be able to to really focus on where they're going and where they are now as opposed to where they've been or what they did wrong.
You talk about the importance of trusting where you are, who you are.
Yes, I think that so much of the journey of thriving is about learning to come to a place of trusting yourself and trusting that that the right things and the right people will come in your life at the right time. And that's a really hard thing to do for a lot of us.
Mm.
But particularly if you've experienced betrayal, which most people have. But I think the largest kinds of betrayals, the worst kinds of betrayals we can experience are when we betray ourselves.
You know, so part of that trust, like you were saying, you've been betrayed, and there are a few of us that have not, if you've been in a workplace at any time, but also knowing that you have done as much of the right thing as possible, that, you know, things will work out.
Yes, and I think when you can really strongly rely on your own moral compass, that's hugely important to when bad things do happen, and invariably they will, and invariably we're humans, we're going to disappoint each other. But if you know you've done the right thing and you can stand steadfastly in that knowledge, it goes a long way to being able to cope with disappointments.
You know, the other thing, as you said, learning how to cope with it, is your resilience.
Yes.
After a fall, after losing your job, after maybe getting a divorce, whatever the case may be, what are you going to do? You're going to keep wallowing in it? You're going to get up and move along. And sometimes that's the hardest part, too.
It is really challenging to do that, and that's why I think it's so important. One of the biggest things I advocate for when I coach folks and in my facilitation work as well is doing everything you can to maintain resilience in your lives, and that starts with self-care. And we think that taking care of ourselves is a selfish act, but really it's a selfless act, because the better able you are to take care of yourself, the more you're able to give to others. So we kind of have that backwards in our minds, and especially I think women. I see a lot of that in my practice and certainly in my own life, because we do so many things for so many people. But if you're, as I say in Texas where I grew up, if you can't get water from an empty well.
That's very true. Very true. Folks, if we have any questions or comments talking about how you may have moved along, how you're thriving, the number is 866-801-8255. Want to share any thoughts? The number again is 866-801-8255. As we talk about taking responsibility also for who you are, what your actions, and that in particular goes into the family too. Not looking for someone else to step up to the plate.
Yes, and also not blaming other people. I mean, bad things happen to people, and there's no doubt about that, and people are victimized, and there's no doubt about that. But I think it's the difference between how one person handles a bad situation versus another person. And when we, as I say in my book, learn how to live what I call above the waterline, and looking for ways in which we can take personal agency for things, be the driver in our lives versus the passenger, and you know, as they say in 12-step programs, to change the things we can in our lives, and realize that sometimes we need to let go of the things we can't change. That is really a huge advantage for people, and really helps people thrive.
Learning to be a good listener.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's good at work and at play and at home. If somebody comes to you, whether it's in confidence or with an idea or whatever, especially as a leader, you must be open, in a sense, have that open door policy that they can walk in and feel comfortable in expressing their thoughts.
Yes, and in the work I call this learning how to unitask. You know, we've gotten so good at multitasking, mm-hmm. and actually there's been studies that show us that we're actually much less effective when we're multitasking. And when you can actually unitask or square up with the person who's sitting right in front of you and really be present with them, and really listen, you actually get a whole lot more done in a shorter amount of time. So that notion of presence and compassion and actually meeting people where they are, you may not agree with them, but we can meet each other in our common humanity in a place that will get us a lot further than when we're not paying attention.
The other thing is expanding our knowledge all the way around. Keep wanting to learn.
Yes, in my book I call that expansiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the keys because I think, it's like if you love fiction, then read a biography. If you love a particular network host, then watch their counterpart. I mean, there is always something to learn. And the minute we stop learning, we stop growing. And to me, the whole journey of life is about that growth.
When you talk about working with people, explain how that's done. Because, whether you're doing it one-on-one or with a group, getting their attention and holding it, too, is another whole different ball of wax, isn't it?
It is. And I think that particularly in executive coaching, the folks that I work with, one of the things that I always assess in the beginning before we ever start working together is, are they really motivated? Do they really want to change and grow? Because if they don't, then it's going to be a waste of my time and certainly a waste of theirs. So really understanding what is it that makes someone want to change, want to grow, and are they really there? And then I think creating the kind of environment where it's safe for people to really dig deep and explore themselves is really, it's critically important. So you have to create this notion of trust and mutual acceptance. I think that's incredibly important as a starting point.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, more on how to be an outstanding leader in life and at work. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
They fought the longest war in American history.
You're listening to the Maggie Linton Show on SiriusXM Urban View. We'll be right back.
In 1965, Vietnam seemed like just another foreign war, but it wasn't.
Sharing your stories and hot topics. Welcome back to the Maggie Linton Show.
We continue with executive coach, leadership development consultant, facilitator, and CEO of Positive Impact, LLC, Dr. Donna Stoneham. Her book is The Thriver's Edge, 7 Keys to the Way You Live, Love, and Lead. Once again, let me say that one. The Thriver's Edge, 7 Keys to the Way You Live, Love, and Lead. I was looking on your website, talk about the 2x20 Thriver movement.
So, Maggie, one of the dreams that I have is to help people thrive around the world. I do some humanitarian work through an organization that I'm a donor, and in terms of helping people develop sight and regain sight in developing countries. And one of the things that I've seen, particularly in my travels around the world in India and Nepal, is there is such a huge need. And I think in this country, we're not aware a lot of the times of how extreme the need is. I mean, we see it certainly in our cities, but there are people who literally live on, less than $1 a day around the world. And so my dream is to be able to catalyze folks around wanting to thrive themselves and paying it forward, because I believe that's a huge factor in really being able to thrive, is how do we help pay it forward and help those that are coming behind us to want to motivate and inspire them to do the same. So it's a dream at this point, but I really want to grow that into, to catalyze that, be a catalyst for that happening around the world.
I just think that's just a wonderful idea, and you do have a video on the website too, and it's just again, as you've been giving, so shall you give.
Yes. There's an interesting article that I've been really reflecting on a lot the last few days, and it came out in the Atlantic about a couple of years ago, but it's just rerunning a segment of it in Business Insider. And it's about the notion of, do we want to be happy or do we want to have meaning in our lives? And a lot of it's based on the work of Viktor Frankl. And it talks about how we chase happiness when we should be seeking meaning. And I think that one of the most important things in being able to thrive is the question begins to shift from what can I get to what can I give. And that's where I think we find both true happiness and deep meaning.
And I think also the earlier we started, the easier it is for that to be part of who we are.
Yes.
You hear in schools, you hear so many students, well, I have to get, in order to graduate, I have to put in service hours. And a lot of times what seems like a burden turns out to be the best experience of their lives.
Yes, it does. I teach adjunct in an MBA program. I teach leadership development. And that's one of the things, so I get young people when they're in generally their late 20s, early 30s, early in their careers. And, at first I think people start out thinking, I've just got to make my mark. I have to, but the question is, what can I get? And then when that question begins to shift to what can I give, it's a completely different experience of life. So that's one of the things that I really try to hopefully instill in my students is be careful what questions you ask, because it's going to reflect in your life what you actually experience.
And, when you say be careful with the questions, that's the same way in finding the right person that you're supposed to spend your life with. Way too often we get hung up on the fact that we just need somebody, but that somebody may not be the right person for you because you haven't asked the right questions in the first place.
Yes, yeah. It's so true about everything in our life. I mean, it really does. Our life is a direct response to the questions we ask.
Mm-hmm. And then you help folks learn which questions they should ask.
Hopefully. I mean, that's certainly my intention in my work is I see that as the most important thing I do is hopefully ask compelling questions that make people dive deeper and think about life in a different way.
Again, I was looking through your website. I liked your book, but I love seeing what people do on websites, too. And you say, be grateful for gardeners. Because the beauty that's in this world, way too often, again, we're moving too fast. We're not taking in all of the beauty that's there. Because we're worried about something else that was going on at work, at home, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. And, it just takes stopping. But we have to train ourselves to do that. Mm-hmm. We have to change what we practice because our practices then become our habits, and our habits really do become our destiny. So if you really do focus on what's beautiful in your life, you're going to see a lot more beauty. If you focus on what's not going so well in your life, you're going to see a whole lot more problems. So it really is up to us where we choose to focus.
Yeah. Taking our thinking and kind of not turning it upside down, but just pointing it in the right direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Once again, we are talking with Dr. Donna Stoneham. She is an executive coach, leadership development consultant, and facilitator, and founder of Positive Impact LLC. She's also a principal and co-founder of Integral Intelligence. It's a transformational approach to leadership development. Let's talk a little bit about the Integral Intelligence, too.
Sure. So I have a business partner, Pat Weger, in Denver, and Pat and I co-developed this work. It's a transformational approach to leadership development, which is very holistic. And we have a model of integral intelligence, which includes the 5 dimensions of intelligence, which are emotional intelligence, somatic, or the wisdom of the body, spiritual intelligence, cognitive, and so we work with every aspect of intelligence and helping people. Most of the time it's remember what they already knew that they learned in kindergarten, but maybe they forgot, and recollect the parts of themselves that have maybe fallen by the wayside as they climbed up the corporate ladder, and put those back together so that they can be a full, authentic human being in their leadership, because that's the place where real leadership is most powerful.
It certainly is. It's a way for people to understand what they are giving out. They'll also receive back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. For people that want to learn from you, they can, of course, go to your website. But you ask people constantly to be a part of their lives and be more fully aware.
Yes, I think that self-awareness is the key to living a meaningful life and to being a great leader. I think that really is what distinguishes, average and good leaders from great leaders, is the level of self-awareness that people have. And, that requires a willingness to really look at ourselves and be willing to uncover or get the help we need to uncover the blind spots we might have, and to be able to step in powerfully with courage and with confidence into the problems that we face every day, and to take a stand. So, I think that self-awareness is probably the number one quality to being a really outstanding leader and to live an outstanding life.
And it's the kind of thing that, again, as I was saying earlier, the earlier you learn it, the better off you're going to be. And getting rid of your limitations, instead of saying what you can't do, start really thinking positively about what you can do.
What you can do. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then everything else will kind of fall into place. And not holding guilt about it either, because you can't change it.
Yes, and, it is true, we do become what we practice. So paying attention to what you're doing and how you're spending your time and who you're associating with is critically important if you want to change the way you're living your life.
Yeah. What's the old saying? If you lay down with dogs, you will get fleas.
Yeah, that's great. I like that one. I'll have to borrow that. I'm from the South, too, so I really appreciate those.
Yeah, that's an old saying from my mom and dad, but it's been around for years.
Yeah,
listen, thank you so much. Once again, it is executive coach, leadership development consultant, facilitator, and CEO of Positive Impact, LLC, Dr. Donna Stoneham. Her book is The Thriver's Edge, 7 Keys to the Way You Live, Love, and Lead. It's available at Amazon.com and other locations. More at her websites. First one, DonnaStoneham.com. Highly recommend that one. PositiveImpactLLC.com. And Facebook and Twitter, she's Donna Stoneham, and that's STONEHAM. Thank you, and continued success.
Thanks so much, Maggie. Really appreciate your having me. Have a great day.
And you do the same. Coming up, Army veteran Noah Galloway, Embracing Life. Stay tuned.
Featuring guests that highlight everyday life. You are listening to The Maggie Linton Show on SiriusXM Urban View.